For what purpose does Mr. Massie seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
On the point of this bill overall, I'm uneasy about several things. The first is the analogy of the fee that's charged by this department, making an analogy to the Patent Office. The Patent Office provides a service to entrepreneurs. You don't go to the Patent Office to ask for permission to do business. You ask for a title or a deed to your property, which enables you to do business. You're not asking for permission to do business from the Patent Office. So I think it's inappropriate to make analogies of charging these fees to businesses who are asking permission from the government to do something they shouldn't really, frankly, need permission to do. So that analogy is inaccurate in my opinion. The other uncomfortableness or uneasiness I have about this bill is a fee is a tax, okay? It's a user fee. It's a targeted tax. It's probably the fairest tax that you could levy, but it's still a tax, and it's a tax on business transactions. If you're a small company, or if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about starting a company, assuming your company is successful, you've got several exit strategies. How are you going to succeed from this company? It's not by dying with the stock in your possession. It's by getting to some kind of liquidation event. And for small companies, you could go public. You could go on the public market. That rarely occurs. You could create an ongoing concern, which creates a profit. But what happens to actually most small successful companies is they are acquired. This is not something that's out of the ordinary. This is the ordinary circumstances. You get acquired. And so whether you're taxing the small company or the big company on that event, the acquirer is going to diminish the value of the smaller company, the successful entrepreneur who's finally receiving their paycheck for all of their hard work. They're just going to mark down the price based on the tax because that's how much less it's worth to them when they have to go about it. And then finally, the thing that I'm most uncomfortable about with this amendment is we really think we're going to give more money to a federal agency in a less accountable manner. We're taking, we have the power of the purse here. And that is the strongest power that Congress has with respect to the other branches. And we're talking about how we are going to give up some of that power to this agency to let them raise their own money. And then we're sitting here fretting about what they might do with that money. I mean, the fact that there have been half a dozen amendments already offered trying to foresee all the ways that this agency will misuse the money that they are no longer subject to coming to Congress to get demonstrates that others of my colleagues here on the dais are uncomfortable with this bill. And so for these reasons, these three reasons, I am going to vote against this bill, and I urge—
Would the gentleman yield?
I would yield.
I just want to note that you're correct. I mean, the analogy to the Patent Office is not a direct one, and I think I was one who mentioned that. Okay. To the extent that they are both fees related to funding an agency that regulates business, they are apt, but obviously they're quite different, and I take the criticism to heart, and I thank
no
the
criticism
for yielding back.
Thank you. No criticism was meant to the gentlelady. I'm just trying to point out the analogy is not exact here, and the Patent Office doesn't regulate business. They provide a service. They issue a title to your property. And so that's the only exception that I had with the analogy, and no criticism was meant to the gentlelady from California. And so I'm going to vote against this, and I urge my colleagues to vote against this. We don't need to give another federal agency the power to fund itself with less accountability to Congress and sit here and fret about what they're going to do with that money. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chairman.
For what purpose does Mr. Jordan seek recognition?
Well, again, Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief, but I just wanted to echo.
Strike the last
yeah,
word?
move to strike the last word, Mr. Chairman.
Recognized.
The gentleman from Kentucky is right on. Government agency getting more money with no limits placed on what they can do with the money. That's usually a bad thing, usually a dangerous thing. We offered 3 simple amendments, and the Democrats said no to them. Nope, we're not going to prohibit you from using it for CRT, critical race theory. We're not going to limit it to just enforcement actions. We're not going to focus on big tech and promoting competition. They can use the money however they darn well want. So that's the fundamental question in front of us. Do you want to give more money with no limitations on that money? That's what this bill does. And I share the concerns the gentleman from Kentucky raised and would urge no vote on the legislation. With that, I yield back.